Hi, everybody. Welcome to this week's episode of Paleontologists Rank the Dinosaur Designs of Jurassic World Evolution 2. Last week, we lied to you with that title. This week, we are also lying to you with that title. This is not a dinosaur. It's still a pterosaur, and those are still not dinosaurs. Any child can tell you that, and we can tell you that too. Who's telling you that? Dr. James Napoli, a postdoctoral researcher at the North Carolina Museum of Natural Sciences and North Carolina State University.
My name is Amelia Zietlow. I'm a PhD candidate at the American Museum of Natural History.
And I would certainly never tell anybody that pterosaurs are dinosaurs, but I will tell you many more things. Some are true and some are lies. It is up to you to decide. But my name is Scott Johnston, and I am the vertebrate paleontology fossil preparator and technician at the Harvard University Museum of Comparative Zoology.
Hey, wait a minute.
And that was true.
Before you go, Alex, did I say pterosaurs are dinosaurs?
I don't remember.
It doesn't matter.
Neither do I.
I don't remember what happened.
I thought you said you weren't a pedant. Doesn't matter. Hi, I'm Alex Rubenstahl. I'm a PhD candidate at Yale University, and I was properly socialized as a child, so I didn't fill the yawning void of emptiness inside me with pedantic dinosaur facts or the need to tell people they're wrong on the internet.
Alex, I know both of those things aren't true.
I know.
Neither
I
lie.
want to say it. I
What
want to
isn't a
pretend.
lie is that I am Dalton Meyer, also a PhD candidate at Yale University, and I would never tell anyone anything because I don't believe in vocal communication.
Message received.
Counter-received.
Transmitted.
So, Dalton, you want to show us Tropeognathus come out of the hatchery?
Well, first, of course, we got to say that we're the skeleton crew,
Oh, we
yeah,
are the
we
skeleton.
We are indeed the skeleton.
and let's
crew.
look at Tropeognathus.
Wow.
A little dramatic zoom in. Ooh.
That's one spicy.
Oh, they're both the same.
They're
Oh,
Jesus
jalapeno.
Christ. They just look...
What are the odds?
The wings look awful.
Coming hot off of looking
An animal
at
that's
just a
nearly
beautiful
identical.
pterosaur. And an animal that's nearly identical may affect
Mm.
our mood slightly.
In the same formation.
Welcome
It's not
back.
as good as I remembered it. I thought it was nicer looking, but maybe I guess I was thinking of the one we did last week.
Well, welcome back to the Romualdo Formation. Now, instead of having tons and tons of Megadactylus, we've got a lot of Tropeognathus and a few Megadactylus.
Did-
Fun.
Do they all have the same skin? This is
It should
another
not.
green one.
I think you're...
No.
Did you just breed the default?
No, I bred random. It's random
Sometimes-
color, random pattern.
Sometimes
This is just
stochasticity
been-
does weird shit.
Yeah, see, like he's a black one with orange.
Okay.
Don't worry.
So what's immediately striking me is that the tips of the wings look artificially... They look like poorly rigged and animated. The wings don't move naturally. It
That's
looks
rough.
disarticulated, you know?
I think that might be a factor of like the Tropeognathus and some of these like larger ornithocheirids. In the inverse of the Anornithid that we had 3 weeks ago.
3 weeks? We recorded these 2 days apart, so...
We recorded the Nathan like an hour ago.
Yeah, we did.
Not to
pretending like-
let you guys behind the curtain a little bit, but
See how the sausage
we do a lot of
sausage is made.
recording at once, yeah.
In contrast to the Anornithid video that we did with the feathered dinosaurs, that was published several weeks ago, these guys have very high aspect ratio wings. They have really, really long, like kind of narrow wings that indicates that they were gliding long distances, and that is tough to animate.
I know. It's just like they're not that dissimilar from Megadactylus, and they just move so much worse. I always found it distracting when I would make my Romualdo Formation enclosure, and they just don't move as naturalistically. I don't know. I don't like that.
I significantly like the colors and patterns on the Tropeognathus more than I do on the Megadactylus.
Yeah, the
Yes.
white one's pretty good.
Yeah, and I like the color splash on the upper crest.
I like this little addition they added to the beak
The
that
nice
I only now
coloration.
noticed. No, not the coloration. The look at like
Little hook.
a little
Look
hook
at
at the
the
end.
Oh, yeah.
I've never
Yeah,
noticed
now that I'm
before.
seeing one that's not just kind of dull and green, I am kind of really into it.
See, it's one of the things that I'm kind of surprised we kind of go a bit conservative on in depictions of pterosaurs is crests and skull ornamentation. That like almost every time I see pterosaurs reconstructed, it is just the bone. It is just to the extent of the bone, and that's it. And at least it is like we're pretty sure that these guys had some keratin covering over those. And that's actually one of the things that I like about the Tropeognathus model in this game is that if you look at a Tropeognathus skull, that isn't exactly what you see here. But you can see how that skull would be contained within this head. And I like that because Tropeognathus, as opposed to Marodactylus that we saw in the last video, Marodactylus being an Aguarid, that they do have the keels on the top and bottom. They're not as pronounced as this. And I like that they kind of have exaggerated that with this keratin growth over it and gave it a splash of color.
Yeah. No, I think that's legit.
Yeah, being close relatives. A lot of the things that we had to say in our video about Marodactylus, which we'll link here, also applies to Tropeognathus. You know, they're from the same place. They're in the same group of pterosaurs. They do look very similar in many respects.
It's one of the only places on Earth you... Why am I getting Discord notifications? I turned off the sounds because a commenter said that they didn't like hearing our Discord sounds. It's awful. The Romualdo Formation is like really cool because it's one of the only places we're seeing an actual pterosaur fauna. You know, like there are places where we have multiple pterosaur species, but it's not very common. And
I mean, there's probably like, what, 2 or 3, like the Solnhofen?
Mm-hmm.
Right, but at the Romualdo, it's like, what, 7 or 8? And they're all pretty big.
Let me see.
I mean, yeah, I think there are a lot from the Solnhofen.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not saying it's unprecedented, but especially for large-bodied pterosaurs, you know, given the amazing quality they're preserved with, what?
Sure.
James, there's 13.
Yeah.
From the Romualdo?
Possibly 14 from Romualdo. There's one that is a dubious genus.
Still, that's pretty good.
That's really good. And, you know, given that bats are the most diverse... Well, actually, rodents might be slightly more diverse than bats. I think they're about equal in terms of mammalian diversity. Birds are probably the most diverse clade of tetrapods.
This guy doing?
They're kind of...
He's having a freaky...
Birds?
This is
birds are.
insane.
Well, I'm sorry. I'm losing my entire ability to speak.
Birds or squamates.
Look at him go!
Trust. We're going to move away.
Yeah. So,
I think it's almost always birds.
It's always birds. Like squamates are close, and it like really depends on how you're defining what a species is.
The last time I checked, it was squamates actually.
It's currently, in terms of named species, it's currently squamates. But there's a paper by George Barraclough and a couple of other people where they looked at a random subset of birds, and they found evidence that each one, like on average, each species they looked at was actually 2 species based on morphological gaps. And
what?
Yeah, and there were things that weren't incredibly well studied, like genetically. So their basic proposition was there's probably about 20,000 bird species, which would make them more diverse than squamates. Right.
There's about 2,000 rodent species, by the way.
Okay, so bats are a little bit less diverse than rodent. Well, actually, a bit less.
How about half?
Right.
Well,
no, more than half.
They're
like 3/4. Yeah.
Yeah. I'm really bad at math.
We're paleontologists. We're all bad at math.
Anyway, what I'm getting at is that flying animals tend to be pretty diverse because there's a lot of ecological niche space that opens up when you're flying, right? You can do a lot of different things. And pterosaurs are so fragile and have such a poor fossil record that my guess would be that we're missing a tremendous amount of their diversity. Mm-hmm. And in the Romualdo Formation, where we've got this preserved kind of near coastal lacustrine environment in a rift valley, where we have conditions where we can preserve a lot of them, there's at least 14 species known now, and we keep finding new ones. I don't think there's any reason to think that we found them all.
Mm-hmm.
So this could be a good indication that there were so many different kinds of pterosaurs on Earth, and that we're just not sampling most of them.
Collection curve go burr.
Like, for example, like the Hell Creek Formation, there's virtually no pterosaurs known from it, right? Like, unless I'm terribly wrong.
There's
No,
not
you're-
many.
And the
There's like-
Morrison too.
Nothing
Yeah,
much
there's-
complete.
Also not many.
There are not good pterosaur fossils from the Hell Creek, which is insane because they were absolutely living there.
I think there's one cervical from the Hell Creek. Like
Yeah.
like
There's a couple species. Or
of
there's a
pterosaur?
well, okay, there's not a couple named species. There's a couple fragments of because I consulted on a book for this relatively recently.
Oh,
Go
right,
go
in
by
SCP, right?
go take a look at did you know Hell Creek? Thanks Dinosaur Comics. Thanks Andy. You're amazing. But in looking through that, we found that there are at least a couple fossils of distinct pterosaur of distinct pterosaurs that are different enough to say that they are different things, but not enough to say like really give them a name or say
Right.
what they are.
right.
the end result is there were probably pterosaurs everywhere. They might have been as ubiquitous as birds, although that maybe not quite.
Well,
Right.
No. I was about to ask, like, I know birds are around in the Cretaceous, but like, do we know how many? Or just like, because I'm just trying to think, like, pterosaurs have been around forever.
Mhm.
And I don't know, they strike me kind of like ichthyosaurs. Like, there are a lot of them and they're around a very long time because they had a lot of time to diversify and evolve. And I think, like, because they are so delicately built and the fossil record is brutal for delicately built things like bats and birds and pterosaurs, they were probably everywhere.
By the Aptian of the early Cretaceous, it seems that birds are pretty diverse.
Okay.
Now, I mean,
I
At
don't.
least that early pulse.
Yeah, I don't buy for a second, however, the notion that has been. It's. I don't know if it was ever published, but it's certainly been in some popular media that, like, by the end of the Cretaceous, birds were starting to outcompete pterosaurs and were like replacing them. Like,
Oh
there's
yeah,
no-
no, I
I
don't
don't
buy that either.
well, as we know, there's only space on the modern Earth for one group of flying vertebrates, which is why birds and bats have competitively excluded each other and one went extinct.
Right.
Right. Now,
why
it is,
humans were coming for them.
right. We make
With all
flying
our planes.
machines to kill all the birds so that there's room for our planes.
Like-
Yeah, there's a movie
all-
about that.
Like all abusive things humans have assumed because we kill everything, that's just the natural. It's like, all right, every living thing destroys everything around it.
Right. Yeah, so I mean, I don't know. It is possible that pterosaur, like, we don't know enough about the pterosaur fossil record to have any idea if they were declining or not by that point. There's just so few of them. I think with pterosaurs, like, even with dinosaurs, I think you could generally begin to assess it qualitatively. The answer is not that they were declining, but you could, like, look at how many distinct larger lineages are around at the end of the Cretaceous. With pterosaurs, what I do think I know is that by the end of the Maastrichtian, all we're really finding in those places are Astarchids. But that could mean a lot of things, right? Like, I don't think Pteranodon and its kin went extinct at the end of the Santonian or Campanian or whatever their record pinches out in North America.
Right.
That's just like when the seaway
Also,
kind
like-
of goes away.
Right.
Yeah.
Which is
We
where they're
have samples
preserved.
from what, 2 places in the world?
Right.
Yeah.
So I don't think that happens. Astarchids are the largest pterosaurs. And so why don't they simply eat
They
the
simply
other
eat.
I
plates?
was thinking.
All of us thought it.
Well, maybe they did, and that's why they're the only ones left.
Right. But because Astarchids are the largest, they'd be the ones that are the most likely to be found. And in terrestrial dinosaur-bearing deposits, the only pterosaur remains we usually find are Astarchid remains.
Well, that could also be a bias to not just the fact that Astarchids were large, but Astarchids seemed to be largely, like, pretty well adapted for being more terrestrial than other pterosaurs. Which we'll get to with our Quetzalcoatlus video when we talk about how it is not just a shame, but a paleontology crime that the Quetzalcoatlus in this game can't walk around.
The end result here being, it's really cool that the Romualdo Formation is showing a tantalizing glimpse of what pterosaur biodiversity could have been like in any one place. And I always talk about how many dinosaurs are probably missing from the record, and I'll have a lot more to say on that in the literature soon, so I can't say too much right now. But the problem is so much worse with pterosaurs, and there is probably so much of their diversity anatomically, species-wise, ecologically, that we just haven't found and may never find.
And thinking about that, like, I mean, for me, thinking about the Western Interior Seaway and like the diversity of animals we find in the Seaway, and thinking about shorebirds and water birds that we have not that these are birds, but thinking about those kinds of niches that were definitely a thing, you know, in the Cretaceous around the Seaway, and the fact that like from the Seaway we have like there's I'm gonna make a fool of myself. I believe there's two or three species of toothed birds that were like diving and doing that kind of a thing, and then we get like the two pterosaur, or two, I guess three technically, if depending on how you feel about pteranodon taxonomy. There's two species of those, or one of them's Geosternbergia, and then there's the nyctosaurs. And it seems kind of weird to me that, given how many shorebirds there are, again, not that these are birds, but they're fulfilling those same kinds of niches, and we only have like two from the Seaway, which, you know, obviously as a consequence of these are small, fragile animals that if they were to die in the Seaway would be ripped apart immediately by everything living in the Seaway. You know, it's a miracle we have any at all.
Yeah, I mean, and even the wave action probably would have destroyed their corpses. Like, you know, their humeri are pneumatic.
Yeah.
They're millimeters thick.
They're paper thin, they're small, and the Seaway is full of horrible animals.
You might even want to take off the S at the end of millimeters thick.
Yeah.
It is millimeters thick. Ones and ones of millimeters.
So on that topic of pterosaur diversity being lower and the Romualdo Formation showing this absolutely incredible diversity of them, I think that this is kind of fascinating, that this is one of the only instances I've seen in media where I'm almost disappointed that we're missing a couple other pterosaurs from that formation. Like, there are so many really fantastic ones that I'm kind of sad that we don't have, like, Thalassodromeus, or I'm probably going to embarrass myself with this pronunciation, Tupuxuara? The one with an X
with
right
the
in,
X,
in the middle of the name. Tupuxuara, I want to say.
I think you're probably right.
That there are other ones in this formation that are also just absolutely fantastic that I would love to see in the game, and it's probably the first time I'm going to be like really clamoring for just like, we need more Santana group pterosaurs.
Yeah, but I mean, it would be cool. It's one of my favorite things in this game. Anytime I had to do campaign mode or anything when I was playing it a lot, I would always have a Romualdo Formation aviary. It was not only the most space-efficient way to do it, but you'd get like a lot of fame from a bunch of cool animals in it.
And you'd just cross your fingers that all the pterosaurs wouldn't kill each other, because they all hate each other so much.
This is a hateful creature. Look at it.
Yeah, when this would go around killing every other pterosaur, I was like, that checks out.
Because this is also the second biggest pterosaur in the game.
Is it? No.
Yeah, it might be.
Is the Jurassic Park 3 variant Pteranodon bigger? Maybe.
Well,
I know.
I mean, scientifically.
Anhanguera is not that big.
What?
I didn't think that Anhanguera was that big.
Well, it isn't.
This is
Tropeognathus. Tropeognathus has a 30-foot wingspan.
Does it really? I didn't think it was
huge.
That big.
Because this is also like.
Oh my God, you're right. Never mind.
It's huge.
I'm sorry.
Also, if you see it standing, like, we know enough of its skeleton that like this thing was almost like a little bit like a couple like a foot and a half shorter than me, like James' height. So
a foot and a half. Scott, you're 6'2". What, I'm
destroyed.
4'8".
That's
what am
great.
I looking up at Danny DeVito?
Are you?
And what am I not able to go on?
We all look up to Danny DeVito. What are you talking about?
Oh my God.
Oh man,
All
but
right.
yeah.
Anyway,
so this is a really big pterosaur.
This is a good time to announce that I was cast as Tyrion in the prequel to Game of Thrones.
Not because of his height, but because of how horny he is all the time.
And how blonde he is.
And deformed. But not short.
But so on the topic of of this animal's size, one of the things that so you might have seen Tropeognathus in media before if you are like us and a bunch of nerds that grew up with dinosaur media. Well, like most of us.
I was gonna say, don't let me into that.
Amelia, hadn't you seen Walking with Dinosaurs as a child, though?
I think I saw like the episode with Leopleurodon, and that was it.
The base one.
When she came over to visit, we watched an episode of Prehistoric Planet, which was fun. Oh, not Prehistoric.
No.
Dinosaur Planet. I hate
and
all of these names that are so similar.
And I had never seen that.
Yeah.
The Velociraptor one, White Tip's Journey, with the Oviraptors that genuinely gave me nightmares when I was a kid.
It's the Mark Norell's career special. It's like, we're just going to show everything that he's found.
Oh
And
my
also
god, I'm
Pteranodontians.
thinking about it now to side note, to show how little I've seen. I believe I've actually seen the Sea Monsters documentary, which arguably should have been what formed my career if you think about it. I'm sure a lot of people assume that about me. I think I might have seen it once, and I don't even think I've seen it. I think I have the book from it that I got from the book fair at my elementary school. So I have the book version of it, and I read that, but I don't believe I've actually ever seen it. I remember wanting to go. It came to the IMAX theater at the Milwaukee Public Museum, and I was like, that sounds fun, and then I never went.
It's good.
I'm told it's good. Yeah, I will watch
like
it
an
eventually.
hour. It's short.
I know. Again, I know. I just didn't watch a lot of.
Dinosaur documentaries also don't add that much information if you're at our career stage. It's like, I have stopped watching them, obviously.
If
Unless they're
anything,
really good.
if anything, I now watch dinosaur documentaries to see like, oh, what hypotheses are they showing the public, and who do I know who's in
Yeah,
this?
for me, that's been the fun part now for me is like, oh my god, I know them now.
Well,
What I
this
love
is-
doing is going back to old ones and seeing people when they're young.
It's the like SpongeBob thing with Squidward. Oh no, he's hot. Even though Tropeognathus is not necessarily a name that you might necessarily recognize off the top of your head, if you are a huge dinosaur nerd like all of us, except Amelia in this specific case, and you grew up watching dinosaur documentaries, or prehistoric life documentaries rather, and you watched Walking with Dinosaurs, then the episode on Ornithocheirus, that wasn't Ornithocheirus. That was a misnamed Tropeognathus that they actually featured in that, because they have it starting off in the Romualdo Formation, hence why you see it with Tupuxuara and all those weird critters, and then it then flies over to Europe, where we know Ornithocheirus from, and we see it encounter the European Utah raptor, named after the European state of Utah. Sidebar. Do we know, like, is there another large dromaeosaur that it was confused with or
No.
something? Like, why was it
No,
there?
there is like a large European dromaeosaur though.
Is
It's
there?
like been
There
there's
is?
like a rumor of one.
Okay.
I've seen it, like maybe from like Romania. I'm not sure. Somewhere, it's supposed to be Big O.
I haven't
mean,
even heard about
it's-
that.
It's generated like one of my favorite memes of all time, which is Monty Python. Like, what are you doing in Europe? Mind your own business.
Yeah. No, it's really... It was weird. They explained it in the like little thing they would do where they're explaining the science of the episode, where they just say there's kind of a land bridge at the Northern Atlantic at the time, so it's not unrealistic to think that North American things would have migrated over to Europe.
Mhm.
And I think it's that they wanted to show Utah Raptor for the Jurassic Park clout, but
Yeah,
did not
probably.
want to do an American episode. And also it's a
I
British
respect it.
company. So they wanted to show like Iguanodon and Polacanthus and everything.
Mhm.
And there's no good predator known from there that would have been hunting them. Like it would have been baryonyx, but my guess is that they didn't want to show it. Like I think at that point we knew they were probably fish eating, and I don't think they wanted to deal with the water animation.
You can believe
And
that.
you know,
They do a really good job with the water animation.
But that was all. It was generally limited to things like stepping in the water. Like I don't think they would have wanted the difficulty of something like having to interact with it. Maybe they would have done it with a puppet. Maybe they just didn't want to show baryonyx. I don't know. Who knows?
Because they do it with the Eustriptus spondylus and the.
Yeah, you're right. Never mind.
Yeah,
They
Cruel
used
Seas.
animatronics for that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so
They
I don't know.
did, yeah.
I don't know why they didn't want to make it baryonyx. There's like wisps of other large theropods from that relative time, like Altes spinax and Beckel's spinax, and a lot of spinosaurs.
Well, oh, I thought you were trying to make the inference that Altes spinax and Beckel's spinax were spinosaurs. I'm like, no.
No. But I mean, like, Reparovenator, Ceratops.
Yeah.
It's a very weirdly Spinosaur dominated record.
Like of all the claims in that episode. So like the reason why I bring it up is one, that like that's what this animal is, and two, that they make a really big point of just showing off how big that air quotes Ornithocheirus is, and this is really, really big pterosaur. But I don't think I would necessarily I would not be that surprised if during that time some Tropeognathus managed to fly across the Atlantic over into Europe.
I mean, the Atlantic wasn't fully open where the Romualdo Formation is. Like, you could have gone south and gone right over land, and the Atlantic Ocean itself would have been very narrow. You know, I'm sure we've all seen that map of that like one individual falcon that migrates from like Russia down to South Africa. It was it was just wandering around, and it's going over 2 straight continents. And that's not an animal that's particularly well adapted for long distance flight.
Unlike this.
Right, which has a high aspect ratio wing and is therefore specialized for long distance energy saving flight. I think they could have gone all over the world.
Yeah. But where does it go in our hearts? I think it might be time to rate this animal.
I think it is.
Yeah.
Let me take it to the species viewer.
Please do. All right, Amelia, you want to start us off?
Sure. This color palette for it has made me like it a little more. I mean, it's terrible, but it's a pterosaur, and they're supposed to look terrible to some degree. I don't, you know, they're just unholy creatures that were smited off this earth for a reason. It's not bad, but it's not my favorite. I think I'm gonna give it a B.
I'm also feeling very B about this. I think it's better than Marodactylus in just the fact that it's a little bit more distinctive and has a little bit more flair. I like the color splash on the crest. But I can't get over the fact that I find it visually ugly. And despite pterosaurs being demonic entities that had to be sent back to hell because that's where they came from, the weird Tim Burton-esque, goofy, lanky, all angles and bones skeletons.
Right.
This isn't ugly that way. I just find this ugly and like it looks like it was drawn for Rick and Morty or something. B tier. High B, but B.
Mm-hmm.
So I'll agree with that, but I'll say that like I find the Tropeognathus in this game to be a really good kind of combination of ugly and beautiful, kind of like what I see in things like king vultures, that they have a mix of that kind of just like it strikes a really good chord for me. And essentially what I'm saying with this is I think that this thing's A tier. I absolutely love it. I like the liberties taken with and like I guess I'm waffling. I like the liberties that are taken with the skeletal, and they're all plausible, at least to my understanding. I like the flair in the coloration. I like that it's one of the larger pterosaurs. I enjoy it. A tier.
God, I think I gotta echo. I think I gotta echo your sentiments here. I think this is an A tier. Fuck him. As illiterate as you.
Spelled with PT.
This is he's good. He a good he's good. He's a monster. He's a flappy monster. He's a big flappy monster. And he's also kind of jacked. He looks like the other pterosaurs, old man jacked, and I think that's funny. So A tier.
It all comes down to me.
That's
I like this more than Marodactylus.
Ace, A gang. Let's go.
I don't know if it's higher in B or if it's an A, but I'm gonna put it in A. I like it more than Marodactylus.
Yeah.
I like the coloration. I like the color scheme a lot. I like the crest. I like the weird extra keratin on the beak that makes it look more monstrous. I think A.
All right. Well, then, in that case, we're going to rank Tupendactylus. That's
No.
what this is, right?
Tupendactylus.
Tropeognathus.
I can't keep them straight at all. I work on dinosaurs, which comparatively have a fossil record, and isn't that sad? I'm going to give it A tier.
That's it. No, it's gorgeous. I don't know. It's not gorgeous. That's
All right.
too generous.
Are you guys ready for me to spin the wheel?
No, I need to.
If you get Pterodactylus, I will kill myself on camera.
Yep.
Spin.
Oh yeah.
Spin.
In.
That.
Oh. Wheel.
We. Hello from the outside.
Oh.
Okay.
Alrighty.
Pentaceratops. Okay. Well, then we're finally going back to ceratopsians. It's been a little while. Looking forward to featuring one again and moving away from the goddamn Romualdo Formation. As always,
Romualdo Formation.
As always, guys, if you liked our video, remember to show us that by liking our video. Remember to hit subscribe and hit the little bell. It really helps us out when all of you watch the video immediately when it comes out. I think that you should know that at 11 a.m. on Saturday, Eastern Time, you need to watch The Skeleton Crew.
Or else.
You have to do it right away. It makes us feel good
Also,
when the view count goes up.
In the comments, see if you can guess if it's the first video we filmed in a night, the second, or even the third.
It might be easier to tell than you think.
Eagle-eyed viewers will be rewarded with a non-distinct thing.
A like of the comment.
It's
By us.
a special 24-hour access to Alex's OnlyFans.
Oh my god.
That's a deal.